Writing is very significant to nursing. One of the things that we look at in nursing is evidence-based practice, and there is a lot of evidence out there, but a lot of it does not apply to nursing. You'll see a lot of medical studies that will deal with whether one medication is better than another. But in nursing, we look at nursing-related problems, and that involves a lot of times looking at things that nursing can do. And we talk about nursing interventions a lot. So a lot of our papers are nursing interventions about nursing interventions and how that can be applied to our specific patient population.
That's great. Okay, so what types of writing do you do in your field?
Well, in nursing, we do a variety of different types of writing. If you are in a clinical area, you're going to do things like progress notes and maybe health histories and other sorts of notes that will help you care for patients. You may write care plans and things like that. But other types of writing can be pretty much anything. You can do literature reviews in some of your papers for class. You will do summaries of what you've learned, maybe on a particular topic. You can also do things like theory and concept papers if you're in the graduate or doctoral programs. We also sometimes do methodology papers telling people how to do certain types of research. And we also do research critiques and write original research type papers.
Great. What's the last writing project that you completed?
The last writing project I completed was a write-up for a qualitative research study that I was doing, and actually I'm still in the process of doing that. That qualitative research, if you do not understand what that is, it is instead of using numbers for your statistics, you're analyzing people's interviews, so you're analyzing transcripts and you're trying to come up with themes and those types of things as your research final product. So that takes a little bit longer than looking at statistics and coming up with conclusions, because it seems to be a constant process of analyzing that type of data. So I have been working on that for about, I would say, a year in analysis, and I have sent that already off for publication, and it came back with suggestions for changes, so I'm working on those. So I would say I've been working on my last project for about a year.
Wow. Where do you get your ideas for your work?
A lot of times you just get your ideas from practice and from what you're working on at that moment. If you have an active research program, all of your ideas are probably going to come out of that type of thing. You may see a need for summarizing the literature in the area that you're working in. So you would write a literature review on that. If you are working on your research and you find that you have a new or novel way of looking at things or a new way of doing a certain method, that would be a paper that you can write up. But the majority of the professional writing that we do is based on the research findings and studies that we have.
Writing study scholars have a term that they use called intertextuality to describe how texts are connected, how academic conversations are sort of connected to each other. And you mentioned the literature review. Could you maybe speak to that in your field and how you see that in your field?
A literature review really does summarize your topic or what has been done in your topic or your area of interest up until the point that you started writing that paper. We also have different ways of bringing in the literature in our discussion findings and in our introduction. So we're constantly drawing on and incorporating other people's work so that you can support your points in your paper or your the need for your study or support your argument for some of the conclusions that you have made.
Great.
Well, as I said, when I'm doing my own writing, a lot of times it is based on the research that I'm doing. But when we come to the literature review and the discussion section, you do want to pull in, like I said, all of the supports that are already out there on the same topic, and you do that basically by starting your literature review like you would any other paper. You go to either visit with the librarian or you end up doing a search on the library website through one of our databases, and you plug in your keywords just like you would for any topic, and then you go from there and you see what comes up. Okay. Well, yeah, I think everybody is different when they get
Yes.
started with their writing. So my process is basically I like to start in the middle, and there will be people that tell you to start with the abstract, and if you can't write the abstract, you can't write the rest of the paper. But I guess I'm not that advanced to write the abstract first. So I start in the middle with things that maybe I've already written for a research grant or proposal. So then I can start with the methods section, and then I start a lot of times with I go from the method sections into the results, and then sometimes I go back and do the background and significance part last.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned your writing area, so can you maybe tell me a little bit about your writing process in that regards? Like where do
Sure.
you write? When do you write? Maybe about the time of day,
Sure.
place, location.
I find that, and a lot of people will tell you that you really need to set aside time for writing. Writing, at least for me, does not happen 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there because it takes a long time to really think about your paper and what you're trying to say. And it also takes a long time to remember what you were thinking about last time you were writing. So I try to find larger blocks of time in order to write. And I find that that works best on Thursdays and Fridays. I set aside as my scholarship days, and I write better in the morning. So I try to really push the writing before lunch, and then I use lunch as like a little break, and then I go back to that paper afterwards and see what I've written and see what else needs to change. So that is my process there. And my workspace has been my same workspace for probably the last 5 or 6 years. It's, a certain area in our office with the computers and the dictionary and thesaurus and all of my resources right there with me. Basically, I finish a section and then I go over it again and I start revising there. I always go back to each section multiple times. And as I was saying, the common misperception is one draft and hand the paper in. But a lot of times I will find myself on draft 12, 15, 20, 28. I think on the paper that I'm writing now, I'm in the 30s for that draft. But it's a constant process. And I do save everything I change or save a new draft for everything I change. So, that is my process to just keep going and going and going.
Yes.
And then what I do is once I am comfortable with it, I send it out for peer review among my colleagues there at school in the College of Nursing, and they give me their feedback, and then I draft it again. And then once that is completed, I sometimes put it away for a week or so, and then look at it again, and then I send it out for publication. Or for consideration.
And then you get some feedback from the editors
Mm-hmm.
as well, because you mentioned feedback from your colleagues.
Right. It is a constant process of feedback. It's peer feedback, it's mentor feedback, and then once you send it out for publication, you have the editor's feedback and also the manuscript reviewer feedback. So you're getting feedback at virtually every level.
Mm-hmm. And can you describe your editing process? And I say that because many students think revision, is editing, and
Right.
to try to see the difference between the two.
Well, editing for me, a lot of times when I edit things, I will read sections of the paper out loud so that I can hear what it says, because how you write is not always, or how you think you write is not always how it sounds. So when I start reading it out loud, I start catching grammar errors. I start catching words that are misused, that type of thing. And if all else fails, or if I'm not really being successful in my editing, I do send it off to an editor and have them take a look at it, because sometimes you do need fresh eyes. I also have colleagues who are willing to edit the paper for me. Of course, I edit their papers as well, but you can send it out and edit in different manners, different ways.
Good. How do you get beyond blocked moments or periods in your writing where you're just kind of frozen or stuck? What do you do to kind of push through?
Well, those moments happen all the time. Some of the things that I do is when I find that I just can't find the word, or what comes next, I get up from my computer and I start walking away and doing other things. I'm still thinking about the paper and what I want to say, but I'm kind of doing two things at once. Maybe I'll go outside and scoop some leaves out of the pool or maybe do some laundry or something like that. And oftentimes I will, what I'm looking for will pop in while I'm in the middle of something else. So I find that that is very helpful when I am not able to come up with what I need to come up with, to kind of remove myself from my writing area and try something new, kind of distract myself to maybe bring it in. Figuring out who your audience is probably one of the most important things. When we go to publish in nursing, we will look at the journal specifically that we want to submit to, and we look at their who reads that journal. Is it nurses? Is it psychologists? Is it multidisciplinary? Who is going to be reading it? Because if it's going to be read by people from social work and from physical therapy and from psychology, you don't want to put in a lot of nursing specific information in the end when you come up with conclusions and recommendations for practice, because that's not going to apply to them. So you really want to think more globally. And knowing your audience helps you think more globally and write more globally, so it can be applied to more fields than just your own.
Very good.